Satnam, yogis and yoginis, hello and welcome back. So I've been away, I've been traveling, and now I'm back and I'm excited to start a new series of videos. We will do some courses and we will do some videos. Today we're going to do a video on honor. Why honor? Because I just came back from a trip in Greece with my spiritual teacher, Ardaas Singh, which he organizes every year a trip for yogis, men yogis. So it's a group of men walking somewhere, generally mountains, and with a particular topic, and we meditate and we get together and discuss and talk and have just a nice time to be together. And this year the topic was honor. So we've been for a week in Greece, and a good amount of yogis, men yogis who are devoted to the spiritual life in some way. It doesn't have to be full time, but they have a spiritual aspiration. And so when we get together, we can have elevating conversations. So today is honor. So let's get a definition so that we can start kicking this off. And I just look in the dictionary before opening up. So we have a few definitions. One, honor is high respect or great esteem. High respect or great esteem. So already this definition implies that somebody is respecting somebody, no? And that other person is the one that gets the honor. Which means that, in a way, if people don't respect you, there is no clear honor to that. We will see whether we're going to question some of these definitions, but for a start, let's take it in that way. So honor is not something that you can build by yourself unless it is recognized from the outside somehow. So that's interesting, yeah? Great esteem. There is another definition. It says, the quality of knowing what is morally right. Morally right. Okay? So that's interesting for a number of reasons. On one aspect, morality is something that there is two components. There is a subjective component to it and there is a universal component. Different cultures will consider different actions moral, which other cultures will not. And then there is a certain number of actions which would be immoral in general for the majority of the population. Then there could be people who just ignore morals, right? But that doesn't mean that is moral to do. If they can just ignore that natural instinct from within. But there is a certain there is some certain universal morals, and in yoga we certainly study this, and in Karankriya. In the course on the Mool Mantra, I was exploring the 10 principles, and those are linked to the 10 virtues, and therefore are linked to morals in some way. And another source of studies of morality on this channel you can find in the Yoga Sutras, which we explored last year, where we were talking about the yamas and niyamas. And we said it's not necessarily like a moral code, but it does operate as such. So, for example, the concept of ahimsa, to not harm by thought, speech, or action, that would be a general, quite universal moral that you can find in most traditions, religions, different tribes. To not harm other people is something considered moral. Now, then there is, on top of that concept of not harming, then people will start adding different clauses, like exceptions to it, and that has to be studied independently. But in general, to not harm others and not harm yourself, that would be a healthy moral to have. Then honor as a verb, yeah, to honor somebody, it would mean fulfill an agreement. That's another definition that appears in the dictionary. So if I agree that I'm going to do something and then I do it, I have fulfilled that agreement. Yeah, therefore that's an honorable act. Okay. Now, another thing is honor seems, the word seems very similar to honesty, which means truth. And even though I believe the words, as similar as they look, they don't come from the same root, but still they are very connected. So if I tell you I'm going to do something and then I lie, so that's a lie and I'm not going to do it, then that's to be dishonest and therefore it's not going to be honorable. So they are connected even though there is no a common root. To say the truth, yeah, and to be truthful, that would be moral, yeah, and also therefore also honorable as well. I feel a little bit like I haven't done too many videos for these last months, and I'm still kind of readjusting back to doing this live stream. So be patient with me. I may be slow. Also, that a whole week in the mountains and many days sleeping outdoors and under the stars is wonderful. But I'm a little bit out there still. I'm still kind of with the Greek gods, connecting to the Greek gods, and trying to land back in Portugal. Okay, so honor. I will approach it also from the perspective of numbers. I would like to add numbers to the discussions that we can have today. And honor is number 7, first of all, though I do find a very strong connection to number 5, and I will say why. 5 is words, and I have this idea, a man who you can rely on him because he gave his word, yeah? I don't know how to say it in English. Where you give your word and then you do it. Yeah. So this is the fulfilling the agreement that we were saying. So whatever you give your word for, that's like a commitment that you cannot break. Commitment is 4. Your word is 5. 6 is the responsibility that your commitment takes. So you say, I'm going to do something. You commit to it. You put words to that. Now you have to honor your words in that sense. However, the honor in itself is mostly associated with number 7. And I think this idea of 7 that is different is like the being on the upper level of the 7, like looking out. Remember that 3 is the one who is being looked at, 7 is the one who is looking. So honorable is like up above that pedestal. Yeah? Somebody who has honor is somebody who is above a pedestal, who can overlook the others. And the thing about the number 7 is that there is a viral component to it when it manifests as pride. So honor by itself is a dharmic quality, but very often what we understand as honor is more about our pride. So to say, how to say it in English? Let's see. It's like somebody does something to you, or for example, let's say you say something and somebody says, "Oh, you are a liar. You are lying." Yeah, and you are like, "Oh, I'm a man of honor. I am a man of my word." Are you saying I'm a liar? So okay, let's duel on that. Like 150 years ago, if you would say something like that, then you might be into a duel with somebody. You're a liar. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look. So, but is that really my honor that is at stake, or is it my pride? Because we do something from the pride, and then if somebody is questioning that, then we feel that our pride is in question, not our honor, but our pride is in question, and then we operate from that position of believing we are higher than others, we are superior to others. And that's the danger of the 7, because it's this platform of elevation, yeah? Somebody who is honorable is certainly on that platform in a certain way. We can see honorable person. But is it honorable for their own merit, or is it just somebody with a lot of pride who believes they are above the others? So there has to be a clear distinction between the two. We have to remember that pride is one of the 5 thieves. It takes away our energy and is an evil, like 5 evils. Yeah, sometimes we call it five thieves or 5 evils, and actually is the highest of the 5 evils. So we have to be mindful of pride, because this is the beginning of many other mind games. Okay, so in a way, you have a high respect, but others will recognize that upon you, and therefore it's something that is given to you. So honor is not something that you accomplish by making it yourself, but actually something that is bestowed, something that is given to you. So this aspect also, I find it very interesting in connection with chivalry. I did a video some time ago on the code of chivalry. I remember in that video I was having camera problems, so I couldn't write on paper. I was just speaking, but it was a very important video for me. Chivalry gives us a code, which kind of is connected to a moral code in some way, of nobility. Yeah, and that nobility reflects a number of qualities and virtues, and one of them is honor. So if you go back to that code, you will find certain keys to how to live an honorable life. I can remember off the top of my head a few, like, for example, don't say anything bad about others, just enhance their qualities, their virtues. Yeah, talk about the virtues of other people, not about their vices. That's the word. So enhance what is good in the other, and refer to the other one on that level, so that it's also going to call for that level to manifest more. And you're going to, if you relate to the other one, and the other one senses that you are relating on that level, on the level of, for example, you are an honorable person, or you are a truthful person, or you are a kind person, or a generous person. If you operate on that level, considering, I think you are a generous person, the other one, being recognized as generous, wants to be even more generous. So they want to even more enhance that virtue in them. So referring to people's virtues is better than reference to people's vices, although it doesn't mean that we are oblivious to them or ignorant, or we just let them abuse others or abuse ourselves, because, this is a chivalry code, and therefore you are a knight, and you also have to defend the defenseless. So you are not completely blind, but you do emphasize the virtues. And in the same way, towards one's self, do not speak what is virtuous in you, let others do that about you. So you don't talk about how good you are in anything, because that can lead to pride, and therefore that is going to stain whatever honor you are gaining with that tint of pride. So the chivalry code is very useful to reflect upon how to develop these qualities of honor. And then with Shiv Charan, we were these days we were walking, and he said there is this phrase. I don't know if it's a meme from the internet or if somebody actually said this, but it was like something like this: sit with those who will protect your honor in your absence, or your name in your absence. So choose the company that you keep. This is in many places. You will find it in many texts, and in particular from that perspective, who you choose to sit with, make sure that when you are not around, they are still protecting and keeping your honor, because the honor can be kept from one to your neighbor. Yeah, you can help somebody else's keep their honor. Yeah, you defend their honor. So that's another idea. So with this idea of honor, we walked in the mountains for days, and we were reflecting upon it in many directions. But a few things were very interesting. As we were discussing the concept of honor, we very often found ourselves in conversations around personal stories, people who we deemed they were honorable, and trying to understand how they were honorable, and how many of these people that were honorable were associated to war in some ways, or to a fight, some kind of fight or war. And we found that, exploring the concept of honor, very often it would be like First World War, a particular soldier that we don't remember, or Second World War, or whatever, and we would have a particular character that we would associate honor to that person, and therefore it would help us to understand what does that person do that makes it honorable. So in line with that idea, we are going to talk about one particular person in today's stream, and that's going to be Desmond Doss, I think it's called. Desmond Doss, I think it's called. And he was a soldier in the Second World War, an American soldier, and he, out of his actions, which were honorable, he got the Medal of Honor, from the Congress. And Desmond Doss is quite particular, quite interesting. He was a conscious objector, which means he didn't want to fight. Actually, he refused to even hold a rifle. And I believe there's been a movie made on this. I haven't watched the movie, so I'm not sure. I've watched a clip, I think, on the movie in YouTube, but I haven't watched the movie, so I cannot speak for the movie, whether it's aligned with the story of him, or does the movie take some artistic license. But I'll just know a little bit of the story, so I'll share it in that way, and then if you watch the movie, you can let me know if it's aligned or not. But he was a U.S. Army medic. He trained for that. He wanted to go and defend his country, and he offered to go to war, but he refused to hold a rifle, and that created all sorts of problems for him. He was not accepted within his command, his how do you say that? His division, He's in the training camp. He was not accepted by either his teammates or the officers, because everybody thought, you're going to get us killed in some way. And they tried to force him to get a rifle in many ways, to use a rifle in many ways, and he always refused to. But he had the right to do it. There is this concept of being a conscientious objector, and you can apply for that, and they cannot force you to do it. But he was certainly maybe even bullied into trying to get him to change his mind and do whatever everybody does. He didn't, though, which that already puts us in a very interesting position, because he kept his word. He would not hold a rifle. He was being moral, because in some ways, he wanted to go and defend his country and help his country and his brothers in arms, and that's a virtue. But he was also moral in that he didn't want to harm anybody, even the enemy. So that's also a virtue. But those two virtues kind of go in conflict, or potentially could go in conflict. They didn't, but it could potentially go in conflict. And so being moral, that can be challenging when you are in a conflict like in war. So that's one thing. And another thing is that if we define honor of high respect or great esteem, something that people appreciate within you, now by him deciding not to fight and not to hold a rifle, he was making, in a way, enemies out of all his, what were supposed to be his allies, his friends and his brothers. He had no friends. He had only enemies among his brothers and the chiefs. So none of them would have considered that he was honorable, actually. And even though he might have had an honorable attitude, that may not have been recognized by others. So already here we have a little bit of an interesting point, because if we expect everybody to agree with what we do and everybody to consider that you are being honorable, then you don't do what you have to do. And remember, doing what you have to do, this is your duty. This is what is called dharma. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is the whole message of the Bhagavad Gita. We have to summarize it in one line: is do your duty. Do your duty, which is your dharma. And the Bhagavad Gita is a war. And it's a prince who doesn't want to go and fight in the war. And it's talking about the war that we have, the inner battle with our own thoughts, evil thoughts. But this is actually a real war, Second World War. So it's actually a war in which this guy had to go there And so he was in the same kind of situation as Arjuna, but he resolved it in a different way. So very interesting concept, yeah? But Krishna says, do your duty. So what is your duty? For him, for Desmond, his duty was to be a medic. So he didn't need to hold a rifle, but he felt compelled to do the training, even though they would ask him to hold a rifle. He said he didn't want to. I think there was some issue with his family. He was very religious. He had a very strong faith. I think when he was a child, the story of Cain and Abel really impacted him. And I believe his father was a World War I veteran, and he saw the disaster of that war on his father's mind, and how unstable he was. And I think he might have been drinking. He had some issues. And I think at some point, he almost killed his brother or something like that. His father, Desmond's father, almost killed the uncle. So he was so shocked by all this violence that he decided, I will not touch the rifle. So this conscientious objector thing started from that, and that made him. But still, he felt compelled to go and help his country. So anyway, he's in spite of all the odds, he managed to overcome training and was sent to the battlefield. And I think by the end, this was by the end of the war, so 1945, and this was in the Battle of Okinawa. So he fought. He actually was in battle, and he had to. He went into. He saw conflict. Yeah, there was. Battlefield, there was bombs, there was artillery, there was all the nasty stuff that you can find in the war. He was not an army medic that would stay in the hospital. Yeah, he was first line of defense. And the Battle of, and he was also very interesting in the 77th Infantry Division. So 77, yeah, that's interesting with the 77, considering that honor is the number 7. Throughout the period that he was deployed, in the middle of battle, there was a complete disaster that they met tremendous forces, and the over 70 of his teammates were cut down. There were casualties. There was people blown off, and he, over a period of days, he went into the battlefield and picked a guy and bring it back into safe position, and another one, and another one, another one. He would keep doing this, and bombs being exploding nearby him, and bullets. And he was actually severely wounded several times, and he would lose a lung. He would have I think it was an arm or a leg severely damaged. But he kept on going and recovering people and helping them. There was a few days, that this happened over a period of several days. It wasn't just one event, but some of them were more significant. But in any case, he managed to save, I think it was about or over 75 soldiers, including superiors. So there you have this guy who has not made any friends in his own training camp with his own brothers and his superiors. Quite the contrary. All of them seem to be his enemy. And as he is in the middle of the battle, he's saving them all one by one. Yeah, he's going one by one, saving them all. And these are supposed to be his brothers, but actually his own enemies. And at the same time, he's not holding a rifle. Now, the only clip I saw of the movie that I was saying before, I think at the end of the movie, at the end of the clip at least, he's in a ridge and he has to defend. He has to gain time for the other soldiers to be lowered with ropes down a cliff. And he takes the rifle. Finally, he takes it and he tries to gain time. But I believe that's artistic license. I don't think that actually happened. I believe that he absolutely refused to hold a rifle and never did. So that was just movie. That's Hollywood. but he stayed firm with his conviction and didn't hold the rifle. And there was such a cliff, and there was all these things happening, but he never held a rifle. He was also, as I said, wounded to the point one time he had to patch himself up and wait for hours until somebody would come and rescue him. And when they finally took him in a stretcher, as they were moving along, he saw somebody who was worse than him. He threw himself to the ground and said, pick him up, take him, then come back for me. So to that extent, when they are finally saving him, he goes off the stretcher and says, you go do your duty with this other guy who is worse than me. And actually, this would cause severe consequences later on in his life. After he would come back from the war, because he survived, he would be, his health would be quite troubling for many years. He would have problems with the breathing and with the walking and a number of things. I don't remember exactly everything. I think he contracted tuberculosis as well in the hospital in the war during the war. But he had a lot of problems as a consequence of these events. But anyway, okay. We got the gist of it, we got the main deal. This is a guy who would save even his own enemies amongst his friends, That was what he was supposed to be, his friends. He decided he would never hold a rifle. He never held a rifle. He saved over 70 people, 75 or something. And sacrificed himself for others. And by the end of the event, and of course by the end of the war, everybody held him in the highest honor possible. I think even after those days, those really critical days where all of this was happening that I mentioned before, his own division didn't want to go out fighting unless he was with them. So they really wanted him by their side, which is understandable. I would also want a guy like this in my watching my back. All right. So we got a story, we got a person, we got a number of qualities. Now, let me try to bring a few of the elements that make this person a person of honor, taking the numbers with us. And we were discussing this with my friends in the mountain, and we were talking about how if it was possible that there is 3 levels to this honor thing. In a way, similar to how there is Dharma, Sangha, Guru. These 3 levels of Dharma is my personal work that I do by myself. That is a way to avoid creating karma. Sangha is the collective that I am with. My brothers and sisters. This is my community, Sangha. And I serve this community. I'm here to serve them. And Guru is the divine. Guru is something elevated, something higher than me. And remember, this guy, Desmond Doss, was very spiritual, very religious. He had a very, very strong faith. And I remember when he was training, they would laugh at him, hit him with a shoe or something when he was praying. He was very devoted. So there was this connection to something higher. So let me just try to explore this idea of the 3 levels with the numbers. So this is putting the numbers like this is something that we do very often. You may have seen this diagram from the Karan Kriya training in the first day, in the first video that we have in the channel on this. But if you want to go more in depth, you can watch that video. I'm not going to do it now. But let's just say you can put the numbers like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And he was going up 1, 2, 3 like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was kind of going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's something coming down from 9 to 5. So there is something that's like elevating and something that is descending. So what is this 1, 2, 3? This is the first level, the personal level, the Dharma. Well, he felt the impulse of the soul. The number 1 is the soul, and he felt this impulse of the soul to in a way to protect and preserve life. That's number 2. And defend those who needed to be defended. That's number 3. And through his own, by the way, 2 is also loyalty. Yeah, he would be loyal to his brothers in arms, his commanders, even though they would not respect him. But by doing that, he would gain their respect. Yeah, that would be number 3. And defend those who need to be defended, and also his own dignity in certain way. So that's kind of 1, 2, 3. He was humble, he was loyal, which are some of the virtues. These are the virtues of the numbers. And he was elevating himself up from this call of the soul, going up into action. Number 3 is also doing. So this is the doing your duty. So he was doing all this, yeah, from the soul, doing his duty, and that's on a personal level he was enhancing his honor. He's not yet seen from the outside. He's not yet recognized by the others, but he's doing what he needs to do in order to be coherent with himself, which is going to be coming into the 5. Yeah. So this is the personal level, what he does on the personal level. Now, on the 4th level, this is commitment. 4th is the Sangat. 4th is the Seva, service. So through this path, yeah, of treating others with this dignity and being loyal, he is applying all this to his service. His service is about being a medic, yeah, and saving lives, yeah, through being a medic. And that's his commitment. And through that commitment, it requires a great sacrifice. Number 5 is sacrifice. He gives his word that he's going to do something, he does it. He gave his word not to hold a rifle, he doesn't hold a rifle. But he also commits himself to be this healer, medic, and he's going to sacrifice himself. He's going to throw himself out of the stretcher to save somebody who is more critical than him. And to support all this, so this is kind of converging, yeah? There is the faith. Number 6 is the faith. And the warrior, in a way, he finds the warrior in him, because he has to go into the battlefield amidst bombs and bullets every time. He has to pick somebody up, and that requires incredible courage and the will of a warrior to do that. But yeah, sacrifice. And also, number 5 is Kartapurak, so what you say and what you do are aligned, so your words and your actions are aligned. So that was him showing that. So this is kind of 1, 2, 3 going up, 6 and 4 converging into the 5, and this is the social level, social. So on the level of his peers, it would be, yeah, the people similar to him. So the other soldiers would be on this level. Dharma, Sangat, Guru. On the Guru level, there is something that's coming down. There is something that he is doing, and there is something that's coming down. In a way, he is working on all these virtues, yeah? The 9th virtue is peace. The 8th virtue is compassion, and the 7th is forgiveness. And you can tell that he is working on those. He's forgiving his comrades, his brothers, for all that they did to him in the training. He feels compassion for those who have fallen into battle. And number 8 is also the healer. He has a very strong medic component, so the healer. And 9 is peace. No matter what, his first rule is he's not going to take a rifle. He's a man of peace. So he's going to be preserving that integrity of peace. And as these are the qualities that he is developing, but from the 9 something descends. Yeah, from the 9, from the divine up here top, there's something that is coming. There is a hukam. Yeah, the hukam is the order, the command. He heard that from his soul. Yeah, when he decided to enroll to go to the battle, he was hearing that hukam that was saying, "Go and defend your country." So that's the 9 coming, and in the 8 would empower him. Yeah, from that hukam, number 8 is power. That would give him the power needed, and the will. This is the strength of will, yeah? The spirit, strength of spirit and will would empower him to be able to go into the battlefield amidst the death, yeah? In the middle of the death, number 8. and being able to cross through the little gap, of the 8 and into the 7. And number 7 is where is the honor. So he is doing this, and then this is descending, this honor which comes down into 6 as the grace. He is faithful, he's open, and the grace is descending. So there is like 3 levels. This is the work that he's doing, how this is perceived by the others, and what is coming from the divine. And eventually, the people around him can perceive how much of an honorable person he is. And that's what earned him the Medal of Honor. So that it's a good story. Stories help to study qualities. And you could see how different could it be if this was a man of pride instead of a man of honor. And he would have gotten angry when he was being bullied during train camp. He would try to demonstrate something in the battlefield. He would do things out of pride, trying to save others so that he would gain their admiration or something like that. And the story, even if it would happen similarly from the outside, there would be quite a different outcome. So you can still perceive it, whether somebody is doing something out of pride or they're doing something out of honor. So that's the topic for today, honor. And so catching back is number 7, linked to number 7. There is a number of qualities of things and virtues, linked also to morals that you can develop within yourself and is raising you up. And there's, as you are raising yourself up, something is coming down from the 9. There is this hukam that it transforms, it's transforming you, and it manifests as honor so that others can see it. Now, in the definition of the dictionary, remember it was high respect, or great esteem, and so then you can be perceived as that one who has some virtues, and then you want to respect that person. That's an honorable person that you want to respect. I didn't mention the truth. I talked about honesty before, but truth would be the 4 and the 6. It's more in the 4th. The truth. So he was holding true to his words, true to his convictions, true to the loyalty, true to his soul. You can see a line with all this, but honesty and honor being together. All right. So that's for the topic of honor. It's a little bit of my own way of recapitulating what happened in the last week, and it serves me and maybe an interesting topic for you. If you have different qualities that you assign to an honor, I would like to hear them. Please write them in the comments. If you have another story that you find of an honorable person, that would be lovely to hear as well. If you have a story of that shows honor in action, I would love to hear it. Also write it in the comments. We'll hopefully be more active now with the videos. I am back, so I don't have many trips. I still have some, but not as many as the last month. And so you can expect more videos from now on. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for writing, liking the video if you liked it. And as usual, thank you for all the members for supporting the channel. Until next video, Satnam.